Garland, we did mention the Chinese earlier, so let's talk about who destroyed and attacked the bridge. The Chinese, right? Let's talk about the Baltimore Bridge. Yeah, yeah, it's out there, right? I mean, when you don't have to provide evidence, you can say the Iranians did it, the Chinese did it, Putin did it.
Hamas.
Is that what they're saying?
That we've just listen, ladies and gentlemen, United States, when it comes to industry, especially when it comes to CEOs and oligarchs and people who are running things, they're skipping on safety. They're skipping on taking care of the working class. Thank God it was only 6 people who went into the water. Happen to be immigrants right here doing the work, right? They're just taking advantage of them, of the society. But anyways, any way you look at it, doors are flying off freaking planes, right? From Boeing nowadays. And I think there's been such a lack of attention and finances paid to safety and checks and balances that something like this was bound to happen. But let's get into it. Let's talk about the bridge real quick because first off, let's talk about the way it's weaponized by both sides right off the jump. When it comes to Hawaii, I've heard so many Democrats, thank God Biden went over to Hawaii and did a walkthrough and nothing's going on over there. The people are left for dead. Here's Jamie Raskin on the floor of Congress once again. Thank you for the Biden administration for doing what you got to do. Here, listen up.
I want to thank President Biden and his administration for their exemplary leadership in the face of this catastrophe and his characteristic commitment to help the local community rebuild. The president has directed his administration to move heaven and earth to rebuild the bridge and to recover the port as rapidly as possible. And within hours of receiving Maryland's request, the DOT and the FHA swiftly approved $60 million in initial aid. I also want to acknowledge the devastating loss of the 6 construction crew workers who were killed in this nightmare when they were working what seemed like a routine nighttime shift fixing potholes. Our thoughts continue to go out to their families and all of their loved ones. We have a long road ahead of us to rebuild the bridge in Maryland, and our bipartisan congressional delegation stands ready to do everything which needs to be done to restore full access to the port and rebuild the bridge. I want to thank President Biden.
Yada, 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 yada. Marayam, I'm going to give you first crack at this.
Actually, I would like to. Garland's from Maryland.
Oh, so all right. Well, let's get Garland in the first crack over there. Garland, was this disaster an accident, or is this a cyber attack or something else? Your personal thoughts right off the jump.
Well, I think it was an accident. The level of difficulty of planning something like that, to plan, okay, when the ship gets right here, I'm going to cut the power on the ship. I don't know how you do it. And it's going to come on and off and blah, blah, blah. And then it's going to hit the bridge at just the right time. And let me add this. And if you're going to do this, how would you know which way the wind and tide was going to be going? We're planning because the wind and the tide will be going at this, and the wind will be going against the tide, but it'll make the ship drift this way. If the ship had gone just a little bit, had been just a little bit further from the bridge, just a tiny bit, it would have run aground before it hit the bridge. So the level of difficulty that it would take to plan this to happen like it did is so astronomically high. I find it hard to believe that someone could plan that. Think of that. I don't know if you've ever been alongside these ships. It's like a city. The idea that you could cut this off and know exactly where it's going to go and what direction it's going to go and where it's just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Go ahead, Marayam, jump in.
I'd love to add to that. I personally, given seeing it 8 times speed, I believe that if you read chapter 7 of Bill Gates' book, it's called Practice, Practice, Practice. And they detail the different live exercise, full-on scenarios, tabletops. I think that we're living within a live exercise, given what they've been saying on congressional level about the vulnerabilities of the infrastructure, the power grid. I think that we're going to see a lot more destruction. So I wouldn't put it past them. There is a level of risk that occurs when they do these live scenarios. They often have, and I'm not saying this was a live exercise, but they do take into consideration a level of, cannot predict the variabilities, and sometimes people get hurt. So I do think there's something more nefarious. More so, there's 4,700 containers, and there were flammable, I think the CDC and the EPA. So what exactly were in those containers? The fact that Biden, we're going to pay for the bridge, that means there's no real investigation. As far as, didn't they rule out that it was not a terrorist attack and it wasn't China? So where did you get the fact that it's China? Because I think they ruled out in a very quick manner.
Yeah, well, let's really quickly, Jamie. In fact, don't go to let's jump in the doc. Let's go to the Chinese did it, and we'll show you. That's the scuttlebutt, right? And then we'll go back to renaming the bridge. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the leftists and the culture wars.
Yeah.
But go ahead, and I can't read that from a distance real quickly. Jamie, you want to read that really quickly?
I can read it.
Sure,
also.
I can read it. I'll read it. It's a huge story. The collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge may have been an act of corporate sabotage by the CCP. Is anyone surprised that the Chinese company did maintenance on the Dali cargo ship that hit the bridge in Baltimore? Who thinks it's a coincidence that the ship hit a pillar that brought down a bridge that shut down one of the largest ports in the United States with a $75 billion per year in imports? And it is also a coincidence that the Chinese ship accident happened at the port that imports more new cars than any other port in the U.S. Week after it started looking like the U.S. would ban Chinese cars.
To that point, that the Dali operated is by shipping giant Mercs, and it was carrying more than 800 tons of corrosive and flammable materials. And Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg likened the 95,000-ton ship to an aircraft carrier, and the New York Times explained that when bridge was built, cargo ships were not the size they are today. So anyway, there is a connection if Dali is out of India.
Yeah, it's got 22 Indian servicemen still on the ship. They still haven't gotten off. Let's play the next video, Jamie. That's ready.
Okay. Did you want me to finish reading that tweet or just move on?
Is there a video in that tweet?
Yeah, there is.
All right, go ahead, play it real quick, and then we'll play the two videos. So let's play this one first real quick, and then we'll play the next one.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, so we can see this again. I mean, the chance of this being like a... All right, cool. Now get to the one where the next... And this is listen, this is what I mean again. Why I get nervous, and I'm not sleeping on the whole Donald Trump thing. The populist right, when it comes to Donald Trump, has a necessity, an eagerness to go to war with China, to blame China for everything. They don't need any proof, anything whatsoever. Play that next video, and then I'll show you what we're talking about.
We confirmed on Friday evening, we learned from the intels within the Chinese Communist Party that our member who supported the new federal state of China, they confirmed two critical pieces of intel regarding the bridge. The first one is the CCP did it. It was a terrorist attack.
Pause that.
To bring down.
Do you see the evidence she's providing? None whatsoever. Oh, we had confirmed that the CCP did it. Where? Do you have a message? Do you have a phone conversation? Do you have anything? The fact that they can throw stuff out there like this, right? Now, if there's ever been a cause to say, first of all, I'm a free speech absolutist, right? I don't believe in censorship whatsoever. But the stuff they're censoring when they censor all of us here. I mean, I don't know if you know this, Marayam, but Garland Nixon's Twitter has btill Tuesday been taken away from him. He doesn't even have his Twitter. And Garland, I don't know if you know about Marayam, she's been censored every single way till Tuesday from her bank account. Yeah.
Debanked. Venmo, Vimeo, PayPal, GoFundMe, Instacart, Airbnb, debanked, persecuted by the FDA. Yeah.
Right? All gone. I've been demonetized. I've been taken down. Fiorella, forget about it. I mean, we've all been censored and for our opinions and what's going on. If there's ever a cause to censor somebody for misinformation, what about this crap over here? I mean, listen, it's one more minute. Let's play the rest of the video, and then you guys can jump on in because I don't know. I hear stuff like this. I see stuff like this. And the one on the left over there with the American flag and the Chinese flag, the Chinese watch, the China watch. You know, narratives like this have been growing. The rhetoric about China doing everything to us, attacking us secretly from the inside, has been growing in the United States, and a lot of people buy into it. Let's play the rest of this, and then we'll get your opinions.
The bridge. The second piece using technology is called remote towing technology. According to previous whistleblowing by Miles Guo, we knew in the world there are
Miles
3
Guo.
countries that possess that kind of technologies, and CCP is one of them. And CCP stolen the technology from America. So the second piece of critical information that we confirmed is there are people within your government, and there are departments within your government that knew about the fact that the CCP did it. The only thing we don't know, we cannot confirm, is whether they knew ahead of this attack or they became aware of the situation afterwards. So this is the only thing that we don't know. But
so the only thing that's missing right now is that our officials have not stated that the CCP did this.
That's
to
right.
the world right now, we're still stating that this is under investigation, that it was an accident, that we don't know what happened, things like that. So unfortunately, this will come out, but it'll come out probably weeks, if not months from now, because if we start to point the finger at the CCP, we then have to do something about it. So I guarantee you the government is going to slow walk this, especially during an election year. This is another breach of how our government should be running in the United States. If there are high-ranking officials that do know that the CCP caused this and are withholding that information from the Congress and from the American people, it could even, I don't know if it rises to the level of treason, but it certainly seems to me to be dangerous for our country.
She called Miles Guo an ex-Chinese nationalist, he's wanted for, to jail. This guy, he's the funder, he's the money man for Steve Bannon and Jack Posobiec. Jack Posobiec has me blocked, by the way. This guy is, he's paid. These people are paid to talk crap against the CCP. There's no evidence whatsoever, but they keep repeating this rhetoric left and right. The only thing that's missing is evidence. How about that? Like there is no evidence whatsoever. This is ridiculous that you throw these statements out there, but this is a normal thing that's happening now in the United States where they're going to blame the Chinese for everything. Who wants to jump in and talk first, please?
Well, I'll say this. Look, the U.S. attacked any number of countries, but let's start with Iraq. What did they first do? They blew all the damn bridges. They blew all of their infrastructure, right? Yugoslavia, country after country. So the United States blows up bridges and infrastructure all over the world. Now the UK, we've had talk about some of their vassals in Germany saying they want to blow up the Kerch Bridge. So the people who blow bridges up all over the world, who attack infrastructure all over the world, are saying China did it. Now, what does China do? China builds infrastructure all over the world. It's building infrastructure all over Africa, Pakistan, Cambodia, you name it. So if I had to look and I had to do a Bill Parcells, you are what your record says you are, China builds infrastructure. They don't blow it up. So now what I'm supposed to believe is the people, well, first of all, think about this. This is one of the major ports, and the United States is one of China's major, trading partners. The last thing that China wants is to shut down a U.S. port because they're constantly selling stuff to the U.S. So the people who blew up infrastructure are saying, China, show me a record where China has blown up somebody's bridges, tunnel, infrastructure, thousands done by the United States, constantly blowing up that crap, plotting on Russia's infrastructure and bridges right now. But it was China that did it. It is preposterous to argue that China attacked our infrastructure, first of all, with zero evidence. I could say right now, it's Marayam. We've confirmed that Marayam personally did it. He went there with a sledgehammer on the front of a dinghy. It just looked, in fact, that was fake video. She had a sledgehammer on the front of a dinghy. Wham! We've confirmed that. And now that we've confirmed that, why is the government hiding it? It's absurd.
Marayam?
I have so much to say because I believe that they use China. They play both sides. First of all, why did you allow China to buy so much property and have such a foothold in this country? You want to blame China. For instance, during the recent congressional hearing about the power grid, they were saying that the power grid is under threat from the CCP, and that we have to address the power grid and the vulnerabilities, especially the Black community. So basically saying if you don't fix the power grid, it's a racist act. At the same time, any instance of xenophobia, attacking Trump when saying that he's a xenophobe, for instance. So they play both sides, and there is absolutely no evidence. Didn't Ava Chen say in her video that the Chinese stole this technology from the United States, this remote technology? So why couldn't it be? I mean, anyone who's awake in this country realizes that we're at war with our own government. So we don't need to be worrying about China when our own government is doesn't have our best interest in mind. And the boat was heading to Sri Lanka. Just for the record.
Jamie, if you can get some banners up there, who done it, China, whatever, so we can have this when we reclip it. And let's get the new Chinese video up just to reconfirm, because this is, let me put myself in the big thing. Jamie, do you have your coffee? Where are you doing? All right. So I've been ragging on Jamie show after show just because, and nobody can do it. He's my guy. I can rag on him only because he's my dude. But just to reconfirm a few things, right, that you guys said, because this is some great stuff. China didn't steal one job. We sent the jobs there. It was the United States who did that, right? NAFTA was signed by our government, and all the factory owners, the oligarchs, and the ruling class, they wanted to make money off cheap labor, so they used NAFTA to do so. They killed industry here in this country, not China. Same thing with the secrets they say they steal all the time. No, that's the agreement we get. If we want to build factories over there, do business with them, then we have to give them our trademarks and our secrets. We've handed them that, right? That's why in the very beginning, before RFK's uber Zionist stand, I was so excited about him because he said, I want to take on China economically. And that means that's an about face and a change of directions. Instead of saber rattling with them, let's say, let's do business better than them. If we want to take them on economically, we got to rethink our roots back at home. We got to start opening up some factories. We got to start outworking them. And I love that mindset, but that's gone. That's out the window. Now it's all this stuff that's going on. Hey, listen, Joe Biden just had a talk with Xi Jinping, and it was not a good talk. Xi Jinping told him, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you a red line in the sand right now. Taiwan is a red land. If you want to mess around and find out, mess around and find out. The rhetoric and the narrative has changed with China. But just to piggyback on what Garland was saying too as well, is like, we don't do anything in this country. We ain't got no high-speed rail. We don't have anything. Look at the bridge the Chinese are building over here. Jamie, get it out. The Chinese do this on a regular basis. They build bridges. Look how beautiful this is. And this thing was up in like 6, 7, 8 months. Take a look.
有些人终会被人相遇。
Wow.
Their infrastructure is amazing. There ain't no boat hitting that bridge. Well, it's over dry land too. It's high.
Yeah.
Jamie, get the next video up with the Chinese bridge too as well. Listen, we can't get anywhere. Garland was on one of my shows, and he said, listen, the ruling class out here, they're never going to build anything infrastructure-wise that's going to help the people. They'll build themselves things that they need to get around. But for us, nah, we're stuck with the 1973 train technology. Do you have the other video ready? Throw it right in there.
Chinese actually invested $430 million to build a bridge in the sky like building blocks. Once completed, it became the first in the world. It is the Wujiang Bridge in Guizhou. The bridge is 6,000 feet long. The main span is 1,700 feet. It is the world's largest span concrete-filled steel tube arch bridge. The construction of such a shocking project is extremely difficult. 60 lifting sections weighing 157 tons needed to be lifted to an altitude of 500 feet using a cable crane system and moved to the designated location accurately. These lifting segments are then spliced together. The error must also be controlled within 0.1 inches. Be very careful with every step of the operation. The whole operation process is like building blocks. In addition, the entire Wujiang Bridge is connected by high-strength bolts, more than 220,000 bolts and 440,000 connection holes, achieved 100% through hole rate. The installation accuracy is all controlled within 0.1 inches. Thousands of workers fought continuously for 36 months. They finally created a miracle that shocked the world between the steep cliffs. I have to say that the diligence and wisdom of the Chinese people.
If I may.
Please, Garland.
Yes,
Please.
one of the things that I want to say this, that I get out of this is this: Americans are suckers, man. I mean, just suckers. Yeah, let me explain. From 2016 to 2020, it would have been Russia. It would have been Russia that blew it. From 2016 to 2020, it would have been Russia that did it. Trump knew it. Putin called Trump, and they did it together, and they were trying to hide it. And Russia was involved. Russia did a hack on the ship. That's what it would have been. Because at that point, that was what benefited the ruling class. And you know something? The liberal idiots would have all believed it. They'd all said, oh, yeah, Russia, oh, they're evil, of course, yes. And the conservatives, a lot of them would have said, can you believe how stupid these liberals are? They will believe anything. Now it's Russia, Russia, Russia. And they'd have been right. And now it's their turn. And now the ruling elite are like, hey, China turned. Okay, China did it. China. And the same conservatives who recognized how stupid the liberals were for 4 years, who said to them, Russiagate is lunacy. I can't believe that you believe that. And now that it's their turn, the same exact people who bullcrapped everybody for 4 years about Russia, they're still doing it, but here's my point. But the same people who lied and blamed everything from the weather to if your car got a flat tire on Russia for 4 years and the conservatives could see it, those same people have now switched the boogeyman to China, and the conservatives are doing the exact same thing that the liberals did when it was Russia. They're a bunch of suckers. The conservatives are suckers. The liberals are suckers. The only thing they need is the proper boogeyman. See,
That's it.
The people running this thing knew that, hey, we can use Russia and Putin, and we'll tie him to Trump. And once we tie him to Trump, anything we say, the liberals will believe because they hate Trump. They also know that the conservatives are suckers because all they got to do is say Communist Party.
That's it.
And as soon as the conservatives hear the word communist, oh, communist, anything that they're told, no matter how preposterous, the conservatives will believe it. They're a bunch of suckers, and I have no respect for suckers. I don't believe them. I didn't believe them when it was Russia. I didn't believe them when it was weapons of mass destruction. I don't believe them when it was China. I didn't believe them when it was COVID. I don't believe them. But you got suckers who will say, well, Biden and his team are lying about whatever. But now when it comes to China, Biden and his team, now they're right when it comes to people are just suckers.
You have a hard out. You got to get out of here, Garland, but I just want to get your last thing, and then I'll get Marion's opinions to close out the section. While we're talking about the suckers on the right, let's talk about the idiots on the left. Of course, what do they want to do? Civil rights group pushed to rename Baltimore Bridge because the namesake links to slavery. Francis Scott Key had slaves, and once again, they always take advantage. Like, instead of figuring out the safety measures and like looking at the Chinese, see how they're building big bridges and beautiful bridges, it's all about let's rename it. Let's rename the bridge. Your final thoughts on that, Garland, because you got to get on out of here, and then we'll let Marayam piggyback on it and finish up the section.
Because it's symbolic. You see, the liberal class is never going to do anything for poor people, for Black people, for gay people. They're never going to do anything for anybody in need. So they must do symbolic things to present the illusion that they're doing something. They don't give a crap about Black slavery. They can talk about slavery because that was 100 years ago. They can't talk about issues that Black Americans are having today because they might have to do something. So they're not going to do anything. Just another example of symbolism. If you give them they'll kneel with a kente cloth on or something. They'll wear a Black Lives Matters mask. They'll put up a rainbow flag. They love to do symbolic things because it doesn't cost them anything. Think about, what's interesting? $60 million is what they say. Okay, we're going to $60 million. Isn't it interesting? That is exactly 1/1000th of what they want to give to Ukraine, which is $60 billion. What if they were saying, well, there's some poor communities in Baltimore. Perhaps we'll have some job centers to train people for jobs. Perhaps we'll do something to help people better themselves. But nothing. They got nothing for poor people, nothing for Black people, nothing for gay people, nothing for anybody. Just some more wasted symbolism. Absolutely. That helps nobody but them in their narrative that they're there to help the downtrodden. If you're stupid enough to believe that.
Absolutely.
Let's get Marayam's final opinion, but Garland, you got to go because it is 1:18. I kept you 3 minutes longer than your heart out. Garland,
I want to hear Marayam before I go, I want to hear the brilliance of Miriam before I go.
Oh, beautiful. Stick with us. Let's hear the brilliance of beautiful Marayam. Please go.
I absolutely agree with what Garland is saying. They're throwing little tidbits that mean really nothing and help them in rewriting the history, which is what it's about, these toppling of statues and renaming. And if you listen to the congressional hearings, whether we're talking about the power grid, they're constantly talking about Black needs, but really the Black people are being used. Nothing is really going to come to solve the issues of poverty or inequality at all when it comes down to it. I want to say just one other thing to the point in regards to China and playing both sides. Under the Trump administration, there was the China initiative, and it was looking at the Thousands Projects plan. This was specifically in regards to Charles Lieber, who is the nanotech king, who was collaborating with China. Under Biden, the DOJ literally archived the China initiative. You would need to know that it existed to go find it in the archives. And they said that it was xenophobia and that we have to be working with China and their scientists to advance. So see, this is an example of playing both sides.
Oh, can I say another thing about
Sure,
since we're
sure,
talking
please.
about that? One last thing. And so recently some idiot in Congress came up and said, we're going to do reparations. And the reparations that we'd like to do, well, they ain't even going to do that, but they said they're going to do it. And they said the reparations will be Black people don't have to pay taxes, right? That is their reparations. But think about this. Who does that help? It helps the millionaire Black folks. If you're a rich Black person, think about it. Oprah, she probably none, but let's say she did pay taxes. It'd be millions a year, wouldn't it? So she's going to make a killing. If you're Jay-Z, if you're any Black person who's really, really rich that pays a lot of taxes, guess what? It's going to help you because you pay less taxes. But what about the poor Black guy who works kind of hand to mouth, who maybe doesn't pay taxes because he's just trying to get enough to survive, fixing cars or doing whatever, right? Does it help him? Does it help this masses of Black folks who have next to nothing or hardly paying any taxes at all because they aren't making anything? So even their so-called claim for reparations, now conservatives are, oh, look at these reparations. But if you really look at it, it's neoliberal reparations. It's just like the Bush or the Trump tax cuts, which, might I add, the Bush tax cuts get put into law by Obama. So I could call them the Bush tax cuts. I could call them the Obama tax cuts. But what do these tax cuts always do? 80-90% of them go to the wealthiest, right? Always. That's what you're going to get. You're not going to get tax cuts that help us. You're going to get tax cuts that 90% of them go to the wealthiest. And there's so-called reparations. If you did the math, 99% of them would go to the wealthiest Black people, and the masses of Black people that are working poor, don't have much trying to make it, wouldn't get a freaking dime out of it. So even the so-called reparations is a complete fraud just to give more money to the richest people.
Well, it's the wrong reparations. I was talking about reparations to Marayam the other day. The real reparations, the ones the ADOS people, the American descendants of slave people have come forth with, it's a labor issue. It's for unpaid work. And it doesn't make a difference what you look at. If you're an American descendant of slaves, you will get a piece of that because Black people built the White House. They built the town, so they deserve to get paid for that. But if you're, I mean, that's just my personal opinion, right? And it's a labor issue. When you actually present it as a labor issue, it doesn't become about America's sin from white people to Black people. It becomes about unpaid wages, and I'm all about that. But that's a discussion for another day. Garland, you got to get on out of here. And it's funny that because you talked about Obama signed in the Bush tax cuts, right? And that's crazy too as well. And by the way, Donald Trump's tax cut led to buyback stocks from their own company, the highest ever. They hit a crazy amount of these companies buying back their own stock. So that's just something to keep in mind. And let's not forget, it was Ronald Reagan who started the whole let's move the labor industry, let's move industry out of the United States. And it was Clinton who finished off on Ronald Reagan's work. Just something to keep in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, Garland Nixon, Critical Hour. He's going to get out of here. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Garland, lovely to meet you.
Great to meet you, Marayam.
Thank you.
Let everybody know where they can find you.
You can find me. You sure as hell can't find me on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Telegram. And of course, I have my YouTube show and my email, which is an easy one to remember. It's my first name, Garland, and the first letter of my last name, N. GarlandN@gmail.
And you have a Rockfin show that you do as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. I'm on YouTube, Rockfin, and Rumble.
That's where I'm at too. And not Twitter though, unfortunately, but we love you anyways. We have the other places to catch you, ladies and gentlemen. Garland Nixon, you have a great day, brother.
You too.
All right.